What's up everyone? In this video today, I'm going to be continuing my most common mistakes in trap shooting series. And I'm going to be talking about one of the most debated topics, if you will, on trap shooting, and that is whether or not you should think while you're shooting, or whether or not you shouldn't think while you're shooting. We'll see you in a second. Alright, so this topic is one of the most debated and discussed topics that I think I've heard over my course of shooting is, should you think while you're shooting? Should you not think while you're shooting? What else should you do there? And if you do think, to what extent should you be thinking about? So it's kind of debated and it's kind of complicated to get into, so let's kind of keep this thing simple and kind of talk about it logically and work our way through maybe some things that we should be thinking about and some things that we shouldn't think about. So I think that one of the most important things you're going to have to do whenever you're shooting in order to break great scores on a consistent basis is to ultimately be consistent whenever you're executing the fundamentals, whenever you're working through your game, and understand that, hey, this is what I do really well, this is what I don't do well, you know? If you're not thinking about these things while you're actually shooting, then you're never going to know what you need to improve on and what you're already doing well, so that you can ultimately become a better shooter while you're working through your practice routine, and ultimately even in competition, maybe even learn and grow a little bit. I know I've personally experienced that, where I've had a light bulb moment in competition that, oh wow, that's something I wasn't even doing. I need to be doing that, and it made me a better shooter because of it. So that's one area that you need to be thinking about is, what am I doing good? What do I need to be doing better so that I can become a better shooter? And so you're ultimately going to have to analyze your game while you're shooting it. Did I keep my head on the gun that target? Did I have my hold point set right? Is my stance set right? All these fundamental things that we've talked about on the channel over the course of about the last year, and you have to think about them, understand this is what I need to do to be successful today, and I need to go out and this is how I'm going to execute that, and focus on the things, the key points if you will, that I need to do today in order to break a high score. So you need to be thinking about those things, but at the same time there's a lot of components and variables that go into breaking high scores, so you can't be thinking about every little thing that is going on while you're on the field. So you do have to have those things that you're not really thinking about. They're more on an automatic, if you will. I'm going to compare it to kind of throwing a football. So let's say you have all your friends over, you're in the backyard, you're playing the quarterback position, and you're throwing the football. More than likely, you're not going to have to think about how to throw the ball, right? That's going to be pretty automatic for you. What you're going to have to think about is to look down the field and see who's open, right? So if one guy's covered, you're not going to throw the ball to him, but if you have somebody open going down deep downfield, then you're just going to let it go, right? So that's kind of the same way in shooting. There are some things that you do have to think about. There are some things that you should have on automatic. So for example, the speed that you go to the target. So let's say you call pull. The speed that you move your barrel to go to the target should be pretty automatic to you. That should come pretty natural after a little bit of practice and a little bit of experience. That's probably going to be a little bit more of something that you're not really going to think about that much. You may have to occasionally, if you have a target that comes out like this or something, you may go, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do on that one. But you're going to have to think about it maybe a little bit then. But for the most part, this is going to be something that's pretty well automatic. Your stance, it's another thing that you can get pretty automatic. If it's not a windy day, if it's just a normal day, the targets are set good, then you should be able to just walk up there and pretty much just set your stance without having to move it any. Now, if the wind's blowing a little bit, then yeah, you're probably going to have to adjust it slightly. Maybe if that left target's going a little bit further left than usual, or the right target, or any number of variable things there, you're going to have to adjust it a little bit. Some more things that you could possibly get on automatic are, for example, pulling the trigger. This is something that a lot of people don't really have to think about. Maybe you have to think about how you want to put your hand on the trigger and make sure that that's fitting right, but you don't really think about the actual act of pulling the trigger. So there are things that are automatic, things that you don't have to think about. The more things that you can have in this list, and the more things that, or the less things that you have in the other list, the things that you need to think about, I think the better off you're going to be. For me, and I'll link this video at the end of this video, the rule of 3 video that I talked about, where I say that I have 3 things that I'm thinking about every time that I go onto the field that I need to be good at that day. So, if I can limit the things that are not on automatic to 3, that's pretty manageable for me. You know, I think that I can kind of focus on 3 things and make sure that hopefully I do them well for a day. You know, some people, you guys may be able to think about 5 things or 6 things. Maybe that's more manageable for you. Everybody's number is a little bit different. But I think that you're going to have things that you're going to have to think about. You may have to think about some of your weaknesses. So, for example, for me, keeping my head on the gun, it's one of my weaknesses. I have to constantly think about doing it whenever I'm out going to practice, whenever I'm out going to shoot competition. I'm constantly having to think about that variable. Another one for me usually is making sure that I'm not going too fast in competition, making sure that I go slow, methodical, and just at my personal speed that works well for me. So there are going to be things that you think about, otherwise you're not really going to be able to get better. You know, you're not going to be able to just go up there and totally not think, for example, and because you're not going to know what to get better at, not going to know what to improve at if you're doing that, because you're not going to be able to measure and say, okay, how did I do today versus the last time I shot? What did I improve on? What do I still need to improve on for the next time? So some things you think about, the less things that you can get that you are thinking about actively on the line, I think that the better off you're going to be. You're always going to have those things that you're going to have to think about, like how to set your whole point if it's a little bit windy, how to set your stance if it's a little bit windy. You're always going to have those minor things, but the things that you're actively thinking about, you know, like if I'm constantly having to think about keeping my head on the gun, that's one of my 3 areas. What are the other 2 going to be for that day? They may be different in summer in comparison to the fall. As I change and as my experience level changes, you know, those things are liable to change. So you're going to have some things you think about, some things you don't think about. The more things you can have that are on that automatic side where you don't really have to think about them, the better off you're going to be, the more consistent I think that you are going to be. So thank you guys so much for watching today. I appreciate it. You can subscribe to my channel here. I'd appreciate if you did that. You can watch another video here, and go have a great rest of your day.